Welcome to the Nurturing Fathers podcast, a show dedicated to helping men succeed at the most challenging and rewarding job they'll ever have, being a dad. Your hosts are Mark Perlman, the creator and founder of the Nurturing Fathers program, and his son, Corey Perlman, who facilitates the program at the Atlanta Federal Penitentiary and is also a father of 2 young children. It's time to add tools to your Nurturing Fathers toolbox. Mark and Corey, take it away.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Nurturing Fathers podcast. I am super excited, first of all, that due to COVID-19 and all the fun stuff, one of the silver linings is I get to be next to this guy. So I'm actually sitting with the one and only Mark Perlman. What's up, buddy?
One and only is absolutely true.
Always good to see
Corey,
you. Corey,
it's great to do this with you. Yes, Corey and his family are down in Florida for 3 weeks doing virtual learning and having the kids here. And it's been great spending this time. This is a podcast with 2 of my favorite people in Nurturing Fathers world. They work out of Holyoke, Massachusetts. It is Roy Lichtenstein and Betty Medina Lichtenstein. And they are mother and son, and they have a whole operation and work environment that they have created together, which we will get familiar with. Betty and Roy, welcome, and thank you for being here, you 2.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
So I talked to Betty yesterday and was fortunate to have these folks able to do this in relatively short notice. And it just turned out that yesterday was a Nurturing Fathers graduation, which means Roy facilitated the 13-week course. And a number of the men made it through the entire 13 weeks and graduated last night. So Roy, share with us a little bit about how graduation was for you. I know it's a special event, and any other reflections on graduations, present or past.
100%. It was definitely another great event. Me and my co-facilitator were just talking about how many years we've been doing this and just how it just keeps on evolving. And every new graduation is like the first graduation. We're excited. They're excited. Things have been a little different with COVID. Through the state and their regulations, I was only allowed to accept a certain amount of men plus facilitators. And because of the social distancing, we really had to get creative and just on how we kind of socialize with each other, talk to each other. And then especially even just the way we sat together was just a little different. We did the best we could. The men were really comfortable. And like I said, it was just another way we just evolved into just something different. And, we did our whole graduation. The men went up there and talked about the father they chose to be. The only difference is we couldn't have kind of the guests that we're normally having, the kids being there and stuff like this, just because of safety. But we did it here at Enlace. We, of course, how we do over here. We have to feed our men well. So everybody kind of cheered it on and we had a great time doing it.
That's awesome, man. I want to kind of give everybody an introduction to the 2 of you. I'll tell you from our vantage point, we think of all-stars that have been around and laid the foundation. I've come into this kind of late, but I've heard my dad talk about Roy and Betty so many different times and so many different conversations. So just for the listeners out there, in terms of the legacy of the Nurturing Fathers program, we've got 2 of our all-stars with us today. In terms of introductions, I learned from Tim Ferriss that I like to change it up a little bit and surprise you guys a little bit in a soft way. So I want you guys to introduce each other a little bit, but Roy, I want you to introduce your mom, and then Betty, I want you to introduce Roy. Okay, so we'll start with Roy. Tell us a little bit about your mom and through the experience of your work.
So, of course, my mother, Betty, has been running this organization for 27 years. And I was actually teaching at a public school with children with special needs. And summer came around and I had my early education license and she needed some help here. And she said, can you come sub for the summer? And now 20 years later, I'm still here as a sub.
Hope she promoted you, Roy.
I've been the janitor. I've been a lot of things. So after the daycare, we had the opportunity, which I'll let her speak about with doing a Nurturing Fathers program, but more about her first. So Betty is a pioneer in this community, everywhere from being the first Latina school committee member to a real activist for this community, really grassroots, really addressing what the community needs are. Doing the work I've done, of course, with having the name I have and just who we are, I've had a lot of opportunities to go different places and it has never entered my mind just because of the boss I have. Not even the mother I have, just the boss I have. I've never seen somebody so committed to a community and the work that we do here. I couldn't imagine ever going somewhere else. She's my mentor. She's like literally teaches me after 20 something years, still every day I'm learning more from her. And as you guys know, and people who know her, it's just the passion just flows through, and it just makes me always want to do better as well.
That's awesome.
Welcome.
All right, Betty.
When you're arguing with me. I need this recording, please.
You got it.
Send you a copy.
We'll send you a
Evidence.
copy. Your turn, Betty.
Roy is my youngest biological son.
Her favorite.
The oldest said you should have stopped at number 1. But he is my youngest. But at the same time, he's now sort of kind of in the middle, because we have raised my younger sister's 2 children when she passed away at a very early age of cancer. So Roy, although very close to her during the time that she was here with us, he also has helped in raising of the 2 boys who are now men in their 30s, right? And so time goes by. I'm aging you notice that. Roy here at Enlace plays a very special role, not only in the work that he does with the men and the families that he interacts with, but I lead with multiple skill sets. But Roy is able to then do reflection with me and is able to say, I think that you missed this, or have you tried that? And I think that he's always sort of that push and pull. It's like, okay, this went really well. How can we do it better? Or this is what I saw. The event went well, or the program went well, but this is what I saw as missing. So he's always that other set of eyes, ears, observer to be able to make it better. So at times, I just want to go, and he's the one that pulls me back and says, we need to talk about this, because if we want to make it better, we have to be able to talk about what it is that didn't go so right. And so, yeah, sometimes in the moment of celebratory, you're just like kind of, oh, that was great. That was wonderful, But Roy will always take that next step and say, and next time, how do we make it better? And I think that that is what has really made the Nurturing Fathers program here at Enlace what it is. That it wasn't only, okay, 13 weeks, moving right along. Next session, 13 weeks, moving right along. It's always doing that reflection, not only at the end of the 13 weeks, but after every single session. And so sometimes he's missing in action. And when he comes in, I have to ask, where were you? And he'll say, I was with my other co-facilitator, or I had a team meeting with my co-facilitators. And Mark, I think that that is something that I'm not positive, but that if I remember correctly, when you came to Holyoke, you said you always have to have that debrief with your co-facilitators, with your team, to make sure that you hit it on the mark. And sometimes you could miss that mark, but you can't keep on missing it. So the Nurturing Fathers program here, because of Roy, is not just another program that you run without really looking at what impact did you have, understanding that the next group is going to be different, but what did you learn during those 13 weeks with those particular participants that actually should be laying out like a blueprint, footprint, if you may, of what's to come. And I think that every time it's a challenge, because you don't know who they are or what they come with, what their best intentions are that might not be able to be fulfilled during the 13 weeks. So to give you an example of what Roy did last year was that he said, all right, got to change this up a little bit. These guys are with me, or the MAPA, 10 weeks, 13 weeks, but there's still all of this other work that they need. And so we now have a family resource center, which we were very blessed to receive a contract from the state in 2017. And Roy felt that there's so much more that the families need, that he really does not have the time. Not that he doesn't have the desire or the skill set, but that he doesn't have the time. And so what he did was he had a powwow with the Family Resource Center team and said, this is what I envision. I envision the men coming through the front door, or the families, right, the co-parenting group. They will come in through the front door. They're going to sit with a resource center family support specialist, and they're going to lay out what is it that they want to accomplish. At the same time, looking at what their service plan is, if they've been referred, whether it from court, whether it be from DCF or another entity. And that's going to be the work of the Family Resource Center. My work is to be able to get them through the Nurturing Fathers program successfully. And that really worked because now the families, the men, the women, the moms, the dads, have now an entry point that doesn't end. Yes, they might have completed the Nurturing Fathers program like last night, but then they could still come back if they have food insecurity, if they have educational issues. Right now, the whole world is waiting for the eviction and foreclosure moratorium to come to an end. Massachusetts has a date of October 19th. Federal has it for the end of December. So that's when I'm shaking and I'm talking to Roy and saying, do any of your dads are in this position? And should they be circling back to the resource center staff to get the referrals to who has the money? Because there is a lot of money out there because of the CARES Act. And so we want to be able to make sure that evictions, foreclosures are preventable once that moratorium ends. So that's all about Roy and the impact.
That's great. What I've really appreciated, Betty, about what you both said is that you're right on the cusp of my next question, which is simply, Enlace de Familia means what exactly as a translation?
Yes, it's a network of families.
A network of families.
So Enlace, that name was committed to that name by residents of this community. And what they wanted to see was, and the way it was explained to me during my interview for this position by the residents here in Holyoke, it was a coalition of folks, was think about a piece of lace. You know, you just pull that string and it all comes unwind. At the same time, it could be this really beautiful piece of art. And so Enlace is a network of families.
Beautiful. Because sometimes parenting and family life is so stressful and it's in isolation, which just makes the stress worse. So the fact that you truly have a community and they see this as a resource where their needs can be met. So picking up on that, tell us a little bit about Holyoke as a community and exactly how Enlace meets those needs.
So Holyoke was a planned industrial city many years ago. And through the times, the paper mills left the city in the 40s. In the 50s, there was a lot of farm work that needed to take place. And there were mostly men who came in as farmers for seasonal work from Puerto Rico. And in time, they actually saw that this was a place that they actually can bring their families to and not be away from them 2 and 3 seasons a year. So that started in the 1950s. Today, we are a city of a little over 40,000 people. 85% of the children that attend the public schools are self-identified as Puerto Rican. And also our school district is considered a free and reduced lunch meal plan, which means that the majority of people are living 2-3 notches below the poverty line. That's who we are as a community. Our job here at Enlace has always been to make sure that we keep our ear really close to the ground and responding to community need. Again, just like with the Nurturing Fathers, it's just not a curriculum. It's about who's the audience and how is it that we're going to be able to deliver that product. And does it work or doesn't it work? And I'll send this to you. Enlace has responded because of a lack of city response to fires that have taken lives, disasters like Hurricane Maria, and the evacuees came here. And I have that report that I will share with you. So this is I sent this an email yesterday to the state, and I said, we have to be able to look at, I go back to this eviction foreclosure moratorium as a blessing in disguise that we now have the opportunity to plan a response as opposed to being reactive when people are at the door saying, like with Hurricane Maria, over 3,000 families arrived here in Holyoke from October the 3rd through the following year in July with either just their clothes on their back or a suitcase. And so I always have found that Enlace, yes, we're able to deliver programs through grants and contracts in a very responsive way, but it's also about meeting community needs. And that means food insecurity, it means housing assistance, it means all of those things that communities, poor communities, predominantly suffer from.
Roy, I want to turn it over to you. And one of the things that when I were thinking about this interview was my dad always says that you're a purist when it comes to the Nurturing Fathers program. You make sure that we stick with what got us here, which we love, by the way. I want to take you back a little bit. I want you to think about, first of all, how many classes have you run? And just a couple of just memories, highlights that stick out in your mind, specifically of some of the men. And as you share those stories, what might resonate with some of the men that are listening, today.
100%. So, it's funny you say that. Going back to, because again, reflecting with our facilitators and people that we've started this program with, it's evolved so much. When we first started doing this program, it was literally like, we seen a need in this community for fathers. I think that what was very different is, the label is fathers are not involved and fathers are deadbeats. And here at Enlace, especially when I was doing the daycare, like I said before, that's all I seen was dads. Dads dropping off their kids, dads picking up their kids, dads, just all around. And it was like, so if dads are here, why do we have these labels? In speaking to some dads, we ended up just finding out is through no fault of their own, just how systems are set up. They're almost just to be silent. It's mom takes care of this. A lot of services are for moms. If dads are identified, a lot of things can be cut out of them. And dads are just kind of going by. The biggest thing we've seen that I remember how we started when we used to go by parks, we would see dads playing basketball and the kids on the swings. And it was like, all right, dads are there. So we spoke to them. And a lot of dads are like, their big story was, well, I'm with my kids, so I'm doing the right thing. And it was like, you're 100% doing the right thing. But have you ever thought about engaging with them in the basketball, or are you going to the swings? And they were pretty much like, almost like an aha moment, like, oh, I should be doing that. And I was like, totally be doing that. And here's why you would be doing that. In this community, dads, especially when I was growing up here, dads were shortcomings. Everybody, knew of what a dad was, but not really what the engagement piece is. Like Betty was saying, over here in this community, if your dad was part of your life, he was working all the time. And mom was taking care of stuff. So when we started engaging with fathers saying, would you be willing to learn some new tools on trying to be the best dad you could be? They were all for it. Funny enough, our first pilot program was actually friends of mine that I grew up with saying, would you guys be interested in doing this? Just to see how this went. And of course, Mark, for people who know us, the story, we did a lot of research. We found you and we didn't know how this was going to take in this community. The friends of mine that are still engaged today with the Nurturing Fathers program and constantly, every time I post a picture, loved it, still have my book, still doing this stuff. We've seen that there was something important in doing this. So over the years, this has evolved so much. Didn't not know this was where it was going to take me to. But the real engagement and the real important piece now for me is fathers who are involved in the system. We have a lot of dads in DCF, Department of Children and Families, and it's a system like any other ones. Dads are really not recognized as nurturing, as part of the family, and can do this type of work. And also, there comes a lot of history with our community with dads with criminal behavior or, just stuff like that. So it's about us re-educating the men and letting them choose the father they need to be. But on the advocacy piece, also working within the system, saying we do have dads who can step up, who are more than responsible, who could do these things. If we could just kind of let go of this bias of what a man should be and a man what he shouldn't be. So going back to what Betty was saying, because I work so close with the department and the courts, it was about dads would come into the program and it was almost, listen, I'm in crisis. I need this, I need this, I need this. This is what's happening to me. I won't be able to see my kids unless I do A, B, and C, where I had to take a step back and saying, almost like that time management. When you're here, I want to focus on a curriculum, like a teacher, right? It was like, when you come into the class, I need to be able to focus on this. But I need to be able to make sure that you're still getting whatever stuff you need assisted with. And that's where the family resource stuff came in. And in doing this, we're also teaching those life skills, how to make an appointment, how to stick to your appointments, what to bring to your appointments, and make sure that you're still addressing those stuff with the many things that you're still dealing with, like the work, the courts, and all that stuff. That has been the biggest thing that I've seen that has evolved over and able to really make sure the men are just not getting, right, something off their service plan, right? I need to take a Nurturing Fathers class. I need to do this. It's really making sure that they're taking not only the responsibility in their other life stuff, but really understanding what is our goal here. Our dads is so diverse from every age to every color to every background. It's amazing. just how so much of that has happened over the short amount of years. I mean, I look at it, I think we said, 180?
Roy has ran 54 groups in 18 years and almost 1,000 graduates.
It's amazing.
Oh my gosh.
It's amazing.
I had to do the math.
we
Yeah, the numbers don't lie, right? But you know,
No.
one of my impressions, and I'm sure Corey feels the same way, is how you started with a relatively small but important vision, but the needs were so extensive that somehow you managed to grow Enlace to really be a wraparound service. And the value to the community, Betty and Roy, you know, I've always felt this, but every time I talk to you, it's a renewed sense of appreciation that it would be very hard to imagine if you folks weren't there or Enlace wasn't there, what a loss and what a deficit it would be.
It was.
So,
It
boy.
would be huge. Going back, you know, we just did, because of the whole COVID thing, we had a great opportunity to assist families at the schools with hygiene products,
Toilet paper.
Tons of toilet paper, you know, getting everybody what they need. It was amazing to see how many dads would say, hey, do you remember me?
Yeah, I told that to Mark yesterday.
And I was like, from where? And they're like, the dads group. And it was like, session, what year? And also, you know, the part that I sometimes always leave out, you know, we also do this inside our prison system. So our reentry program in Ludlow for these men, and the reason I love the reentry program is because they're returning back to our community. So it's really about what's the engagement when you come out, and of course the responsibility of what was taken from you from whatever has happened. But it's amazing when I see all these guys saying, hey, you know, I took your class. He goes, I still do the work. You know, they'll always pop up their favorite part of the curriculum. Mark, you know, we're real big on the cup, a quarter, and a ball, you know, our play shop experience, and they still talk about that. And kind of just the miscommunication over, you know, again, the roles that men play. You don't need money to engage with your kids. And a lot of them, you know, they hold on to that because that's what they're always told. You know, you don't have the money, you can't be a dad.
I shared yesterday with Mark that we were doing a pop-up outside, and it was for food insecurity. And I was able to make a contact with some of the farmers. So they brought in fresh produce. And there was a gentleman walking by, and he pulled down his mask and he said, remember me? And I looked at him and I said, oh, yeah. And he said, I went through your program 3 times. I did the Nurturing Fathers in the Community. I did the MAPA, and then I did the Nurturing Fathers he said, behind the wall. And so I was incarcerated. And he says, I got it. I'm still doing the work. And it was like, so I was sharing that with Mark. It was Miguel.
Okay.
And so Miguel says, maybe I can help Roy with the group. I was like, all right, I'll tell Roy that.
Best kind of feedback you can get, right?
It's also just a small world we live in. So obviously, you know, I've done my journey, you know, with my own stuff with my working out and getting in and staying in healthy. And it's even amazing there that I ran into a person and there was a female there and she said, you're Roy. And I was like, yeah. She goes, you don't remember me. And I was like, no, I don't remember you. She said, my father was in your incarcerated class and I went to your graduation.
Oh.
And it kind of threw me back, just kind of like, usually I get the dads to say hi. This is now a grown woman, you know, who was like literally saying, you know, I remember this. And I remember I wasn't able to see my dad because he was incarcerated, but I went to the graduation and how happy he was. It's like I tell you, you don't know how important your work is until you see it through the kid's eyes. And then now even a kid who's an adult eyes. And just saying, you know, it was just amazing that he was able to later in his life really see the importance of being a father and what it did for me. And now she's a parent, you know, and it's just wild just to think of, like you say, you don't really know the impact until you really see the families. And like I always say, Mark, you're a household name here, you know? We talk about the Nurturing Fathers program. It's like Mark Perlman, and we say all these stories. And the legacy is just, it's so big and huge. It's sometimes overwhelming, but it's so powerful. And like I say, you know, same thing we do with the dads. We're constantly role modeling. You know, everywhere we go, we're role modeling. And it's very important to understand that. Even like when I'm at the gym and I'm on my pre-workout, I'm grunting, you don't know who's there. You don't know how they remember you and do stuff like this. So it's all of a sudden when I was approached, it really threw me back. And I was like, wow, this is really powerful just to have somebody.
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
So we'll kind of head down the final track here. But I always like to end with having you guys just think back of any memories or stories. I know that just teaching the program myself over the last 7 years, I mean, there's just certain men, certain experiences that stand out for either of you, obviously without names, of course, but any experiences or memories that stand out to you that you'll take with you forever that you might want to share with our audience?
My goodness, there's so many. There's so many. I think about a gentleman who spent most of his children's lives behind bars. And during graduation, he was apologizing to them for not being present in their life. And they now had children of their own. And he was now coming out of prison. And what he said was that he hoped that they would allow him to be the grandfather, that he wasn't able to be the father to them. That was one. The other one was, again, a young man who was incarcerated. The mother was living down south. And the person responsible for making sure to get the men to the graduation site called and said that this particular mother, who was much older, in a wheelchair, she had lots of underlying health conditions, was taking the train to come up to witness her son graduate from the first thing that he had ever completed in his life successfully. That was a real bang. The third one, and it's like Mark always warned us, get ready for those graduations. They're very emotional. A young man who came in also from being incarcerated, came in this stunning linen suit, just shined and looked like he had just come off the beach. And he went up to the podium front of, there was over 200 people there. And he apologized to his mother for not being the son that she really had deserved. And those three for me just kind of, and not just that men who are, when they get unfortunately to a point of incarceration, that they do that thinking. But those were three that will always stay with me about how I wish I hadn't been. However, I've now gone through this and I'm going to leave the prison system and hopefully never return. And that for me has always been the key, the recidivism. Can we keep you out of there? Can you do the work that you need to do not to go back to that?
I remember the story you were talking about, the man who was incarcerated. And I remember another man that kind of same scenario. He asked if his son can come to the stage. And he brought his son to the stage. And, of course, we really don't know what's going to happen, right? During graduation, you just never know. It's like they could just go off script. We try to do prep, whatever it may be. But he brought his son on stage. He got on one knee and he apologized to his son. And the scenario with him was he had alcohol problems. He had the child in a car. He got in a car accident. The child, of course, was somewhat hurt. He then, because of his history, got incarcerated. And he literally made a public apology to his son for ever putting him in that situation. And really took, of course, everybody was just, in tears. He was in tears. The kid was in tears. And just him wanting to explain that he will do better from now on and follow better examples, it was almost like none of us were in the room. And you're talking about inside that room, there must have been over 150 people. It was a big graduation. And it was literally like one of those movie scenes where it's like he was just talking to his son like none of us were there. It was a father and son moment. And it was just absolutely amazing just to see that transpire in front of all of our eyes.
At that graduation, the commissioner of the Department of Children and Families was present. And he pulled back the tears. So that was really like a monumental moment for us about, one is that he was, and two, that he would be able to see the impact of the Nurturing Fathers program, at least for the multiple men that were there, at the podium.
We had a gentleman that came over here, I won't say his name, but this guy always stood with me till this day. And he was another gentleman from Florida, and he had to move here because his kids were in custody. No fault of his own, stuff happened with mom. And they told him, if you want to be part of your kids' lives and start this process, you need to move here. We know that's not always the case, but he was here. So we did a lot of work with him. He was in the Nurturing Fathers program. I remember I got summons to court and they were like, listen, here's the deal. If you want your kids, 5 girls?
There were a bunch of little girls.
Yeah, 5 girls. This young kid. I'm just there like, oh boy. Here's what I'm willing to do. He said, if you can produce me a fully furnished apartment in 24 hours, I'll give you custody of all these girls. And I was like floored saying, what a setup. How can you do this to him? Who can do this? This guy just moved here. He had, left everything he had. He was actually staying in a shelter down the street just in order to be part of his kids' lives. I was like, it's a setup. What are we going to do? And I was devastated because I was like, it's not going to happen. I remember I came back to Enlace and I spoke to Betty and we literally said, let's make this happen. And I was like, how the hell are we going to make this happen? And we started calling all of our resources, everybody in this community that offers these type of things. And I can tell you in 24 hours, we had this man a fully furnished apartment, fully groceried up and the whole 9 yards. And went to court and we pretty much went to the honor and threw the keys saying, give us the kids. Let's make it happen.
Wow.
You could tell the judge was like, oh, what did I say and what did I do? Here we're ready. We have transportation. We have car seats. Let's make this happen.
We even cooked dinner that night.
We did everything.
We cooked dinner for the kids.
So literally, he got custody of these kids. I can tell you, when we talk about facilitation, for weeks straight, I would have dreams saying, oh my God, a kid wasn't in the car. I was like, was the kid in the car? I'll call him, is your kid's in the car? Like, just freaking amazing thing. To this day, his kids are all grown. He has been a successful single father. And it's just amazing to see what happens when the community can really get together. Anything is possible as long as the support is there.
That was hard, though.
Oh, that was not easy. That was not an easy pull. But I think it just proved the point saying, if we could produce this, is the system going to stick by what they said? And they did. And that was kind of like our more community success story. So in our systems, they know about the nurturing fathers, and now we do the mom and pa, the co-parenting. And again, our co-parenting does not mean you have to be in the relationship. It's literally, are you able just to parent together? So we focus on both sides of it. We had a dad who was in a nurturing fathers class. So when the system refers them and they know they are in a relationship, they'll put them both in the marriage and parenting class and then also in the nurturing fathers class. So we do a lot of work with the dads, and then we're able to come back and say, now apply this in the mom and pa class. This is a family that had 10 kids in custody. There was literally 10 kids in custody, and it was from adoption. Some kids were getting adopted. Some kids would come back, and it was just everything was just so complicated on everybody's side. How does the system say, here's 10 kids to a family that really needed assistance? And let's be real, 10 kids are 10 kids. So we did a lot of work with them. They did a lot of growing through our program. We seen it like right in front of our eyes. And the system didn't almost want to budge with them. It was almost they were going to stick to their guns regardless of what they accomplished or didn't accomplish. Where here at Enlace, we're able to get the right people involved and saying, can you really look at this case? During this process, we did this, and this is a little bit before COVID and holidays. They ended up really looking at what they were supported with, what tools they gained through Enlace and through other services that they were in. And we were able now, they have custody of all kids, but it was even the transition of get them there. Don't just give them all 10 kids. Let's do one at a time. Let's see how they engage with them. There was such a range of ages. And even that was tough, and the support for the family because, who's going to be the last is the older ones. And the older ones are like, well, why can't I come home? And it was just a lot of support. So they used to do their visitations here at Enlace. So we're able to speak with the kids, see the progress, let them understand that this is definitely not only a goal, it's going to happen. And to this day, they have their kids, and this family too is also still engaged with Enlace. I could go on and on.
It's amazing, man.
Stories. Those are some of the best stories I have ever heard.
Yeah.
Truly remarkable. You can't make this stuff up. It's just absolutely incredible.
It's there. And, even the ones that bring tears to our eyes, the passion behind the men. There was one dad who, he had a tough time. His life from his past was just so much for him that through the course, and we were just like, this is an amazing dad. He ended up giving up his kids to a foster family. And during the graduation, he said, I still have so many demons that I'm dealing with. But what I learned from this program was the best thing I could do is be part of my kid's life in this way. So he did an open adoption. He ended up really speaking with his kids saying, this is going to be the place. And I remember graduation, he goes, my kids are going to go to college. My kids are going to have a life. They're going to do things that I know right now I can't. And his whole speech about the grad was, it's more than just blood, right? As a man and as a father, it's like, well, that's my kid, that's my blood. And as long as that's mine, that ownership, that's mine. It doesn't matter what I have. And he really took himself out of that and said, my job as a father is to make sure my kids are protected. And he knew them, he said, they're not protected with me. He said, I'm still dealing with my stuff. So the best thing I could do as a father is put them in a place where they're going to succeed, but also still be part of their life. And, Mark, say, what you have created is just literally amazing. As I've said it over and over, because it's all sides. It's about being a man in this world. It's about being a father. And what really do you want as far as your legacy, and how do you want to view yourself in this world?
Wow.
Thank you. Appreciate that very much.
Kudos to the two of you. I mean, if you think of the stories that you just shared, I just think of the 5 girls and the generations after generations of good that are going to come just from that one story that you have enabled, all the different paths that will go in different directions thanks to what you all have created. So thanks to both of you for all of your energy and effort that you've put in. We're really appreciative.
Much appreciated.
Thanks for listening to the Nurturing Fathers podcast. Have questions or comments? Join the conversation at facebook.com/nurturingfathers or email us at nurturingfathers@gmail.com.